What? It's a rubber chicken. It's my Christmas gift. For the past month or so, on my Instagram stories, I've asked you to send me some questions for this Q&A, and I'm just gonna read them and answer, which is how a Q&A works. Some are 2020 related, some aren't, but I think we're gonna be talking about, 2020 a lot. Let's not start with those ones though. Let's start with something else. How do you cope with nerves before a show? I very rarely get nervous before a show. Like, I can think of that happening like 3 times in my life, and I've been wrestling for let's count this here and say that I've been wrestling for like 14 years. I started very, very young. I don't know, I'm not nervous, I feel comfortable being in the ring. I feel comfortable being in front of people. I've always have, and yeah. I've had a couple of situations where I kind of like put an extra pressure on myself before a match because I kind of knew that I had to deliver. That match was important, it meant something. But in general, no, I don't feel nerves. After all, I am David Francisco. Out of all the moves you have in your moveset, what is your favorite? I'm gonna cop out on this one and say 3 that I really like. The super kick is definitely number 1. I've always loved the super kick. In fact, the super kick was my main weapon, especially when I was in Portugal. I love a good spine buster. Love a good spine buster. More recently, the move that I like the most recently is obviously the Gotch style pile driver. How did you keep yourself positive during this tough year? Well, I kinda embraced it. It's not gonna be any wrestling. When wrestling comes back, then it does. Until then, it's completely out of my control when it comes to me being able to be in a ring again. Gladly was able to shift my focus to the things that I could do, and I've been having a lot of fun learning and experimenting when it comes to stuff like this, content, social media, Twitch, which I'm loving. As long as I have somewhere where I can still be creative and I can still, create something, then I'll be happy. It's not the same as wrestling at all, but at least it kind of keeps me going until wrestling comes back. Beginners always struggle with blocks on some moves. What move have you found the hardest? Well, I'll tell you 2 stories on that. One, the power slam. Like the British Bulldog power slam. I cannot, for the like of me, figure out the mechanics of that move. I'm like, it's always like wonky, and I can never hit my opponent the proper way to it's just, I don't know. I don't get the power slam at all. A move that I'm terrified of doing though is the sunset flip. This is because years and years ago, in my first year of training, I did a sunset flip which I was comfortable with, but I landed straight on the top of my head on the floor. Bang. Nothing happened to me. I was fine. But ever since I have this trauma, for years and years I couldn't do it. And recently, if I need to do a sunset flip right now, I'll do it. But just know that in my mind, I'm going absolutely berserk. And then I do it because, yeah, I'm David Francisco. What has 2020 made you appreciate more? I think this answer is probably what the majority of people would say, but it's so true, and I'm sorry if I'm being cliche on this. In my personal case, it's just the liberty that I had with being able to wrestle whenever I want and being able to train whenever I want, right? I moved to the UK from Portugal because I wanted to have wrestling as a bigger part of my life, and for the past 2-3 years, I was in a wrestling ring almost every single day between shows and training. And that's gone, and that sucks. But another thing that's been gone in 2020 as well, that I didn't think of it until it went gone, was the gym. Just a place that you can go to train, right? Instead of having to makeshift at home or on the streets or whatever. Those short times when the gym reopened here in London, when I went back to the gym and I was able to train in a gym, it just made me appreciate it so much more. A lot of people say it, and I believe it's true. The little things that we took for granted that I think that we will now be able to appreciate a bit more. At least for the first 4 months, and then we'll just get used to it, We'll forget about it, and we'll just start using street shoes on the ring mat, or we'll just start leaving dumbbells everywhere without putting them back. The usual kind of behavior from numbskulls that really pisses me off. Your goals for 2021. You're gonna have to listen to the David Francisco podcast to find out. Seriously, subscribe to the David Francisco podcast. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, links in the description. Speaking of podcast, is there any wrestler you'd like on your podcast? The thing about the podcast is that I am not doing like podcast interviews. I don't want to interview people, for the podcast. What I want to do is I want to have a conversation with my friends and people that I know from wrestling, like I would backstage at a show. In fact, when shows come back, or at least like, even if it's just classes, I want to sit down with people and be next to them. And we just like having a conversation that we normally would. Just this time the microphone is on. And because of that, like, it's very hard for me to sit here and be like, yeah, I want to interview these people because they're like great names, and I want to have them on my podcast. Because what I really want on my podcast is conversations with people I know, people that I already have some sort of relationship, instead of like going in completely like as an interview, because there's so many interviews already in the podcast world that I want to bring something different. What I want to bring is a little bit of like the relationship that exists between me and the person that I'm having a conversation with. That's all the questions I'm going to answer for this video here today. Thank you so much to everyone that sent in questions. If I didn't get to your question, then, well, there's always next year. Keep an eye here on the channel because I've got a few ideas for 2021 and I am sure that you're going to appreciate it. So if you haven't yet, subscribe so you can get the videos first before anyone else. I'm going to continue to post a full match every week, so keep an eye out for that. And make sure you follow me everywhere at DeFrancisco_1. Cool?